So our topic for today is the MBTI. Have you ever heard it before? Have you ever done an MBTI test before? The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, is a set of questions, and by answering the questions, you can learn about how you make choices and how you analyze the world. According to the results of the quiz, you get placed into one of 16 different groups. Now, these groups are called types, and the types are based on theories that were created by the psychiatrist Carl Jung in a book that he published in 1921, way back in 1921, called the Psychological Types. Psychological Types. The MBTI was developed by two women, Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers, during World War II. They initially developed the MBTI to help women who are looking to enter the workforce find jobs that would help them to have happy and productive careers. Eventually, the MBTI developed into its modern day from around the early 1960s. The MBTI measures four things. And these are also known as the four dichotomies, and places people into one of 16 different personality types depending on the results. All of the personality types are considered to be equal, and there is no one best type. So what exactly are these four dichotomies that the MBTI measures? And so what exactly are these four dichotomies that the MBTI measures? And how are personalities categorized? Let me walk you through it. The first thing that the MBTI measures is outlook, which is either extroversion E or introversion I. Extroverts are people who like to spend time with other people and get their energy from the outside world. Introverts are people who like to spend time alone, thinking and reflecting. Introverts get their energy from their inside world. The second thing that the MBTI measures is information gathering, and this is divided into sensing S and intuition N. People who are sensing trust facts and tend to accept things that they can see, hear, taste, touch, or smell. But on the other hand, the people who trust their intuition are more likely to trust information that really isn't dependent on the senses and can be easily tested. They are more likely to trust hunches. And go with their gut. The third measure is about decision making, and this is divided into thinking and feeling. People who make decisions alone and use their reasoning and logistic skills to make decisions are called thinkers, T. And on the other hand, the people who seek harmony and consider all of the people involved in a situation and how decisions will affect everyone, well, these people are more likely to be an F or a feeler. The final measure is judging and perceiving. And this is all about how we deal with others and perceive details and handle the outside world. Judges use thinking and feeling when doing things. But on the other hand, perceivers tend to use sensing and intuition when doing things. So then when we put everything together and you finish doing your MBTI test, you get a 4-letter code which correspond to your personality type. For example, an ESTJ is a person who prefers extroversion, sensing, thinking, and judging. Or an INFP is a person who prefers introversion, intuition, feeling, and perceiving. And there are 16 different letter combinations, different personality types that can result from doing the Myers-Briggs. Okay, result from doing the Myers-Briggs. So, in a nutshell, that's what the MBTI is all about. That's what the MBTI is all about. That's what the MBTI is all about. And now let's welcome Anna to this episode and get started our conversation about this psychological test and what our opinions of the Myers-Briggs are. Here we go. So Anna, let's talk about our MBTIs. Yeah, I'd love to. I absolutely love to. I'd love to. I absolutely love this topic today. And one thing that I think is really interesting, one thing I think really interesting is one thing I think is really interesting is that this personality test was developed by a mom and a daughter team. I don't know, I don't think I could ever imagine working with my mom closely like that when I was an adult. Could you, Andrew? I found that interesting too. I found that really interesting too. I found that really interesting too. I found that really interesting too. I found that interesting too. I found that really interesting too. And I can't picture it. I can't ever imagine myself developing a personality test with mom in this life, at least. But it is a fun little fact about the MBTI that I think some people may not know about. Right. I could not imagine working with my mom like this. I could not imagine studying English steadily. I could not imagine. I could not imagine could ever with my mom like this. So I give credit to them for being able to produce something out of that. But I don't. But why don't we start with trying to guess what each other's profiles are or what each other's personalities are? Why don't we start with trying to guess what each other's profiles are or what each other's personalities are? Why don't we start with trying to guess? Why don't we start with trying to guess? Yeah, I think this is a fun way to do this, Anna. Before we just share with everyone what kind of result we got on the personality test that we did, we will try to guess each other's. So just before we started recording, Anna, I went over all of the 16 different kinds of personality types on the MBTI. I went over all of the 16 different types of personality types on the MBTI. I went over all of the 16 different types of I went over all of the 16 different kinds of 16 different kinds of personality types on the MBTI. I went over all of the 16 different kinds of personality types on the MBTI. I went over all of the 16 different kinds of. I went over all of the 16 different kinds of personality types on the MBTI. I went over all of the 16 different kinds of personality types on the MBTI. And I was trying to imagine what one matches your personality best. I was trying to imagine what one matches your personality best. What one 어떤 게? I was trying to imagine what one matches your personalities best. What one matches your personality best. I was trying to imagine what one 어떤 게 matches your personality. 너의 성격에 맞는지 best 가장 맞는지. I was trying to imagine what one matches your personality best. I was trying to what one matches your personality best. I was trying to imagine what one matches your personality best. I was trying to imagine what one matches your personality best. I was trying to imagine what one matches your personality best. What one matches your personality best. And it was difficult to be honest. There were several that I thought that you could fit into. There were several that I thought that you could fit into. There were several that I thought that you could fit into. There were several that I thought that you could fit into. But the one that I decided on is ENFJ. The one that I decided on, 내가 결정한 건 ENFJ야. The one that I decided on ENFJ. Am I right? You're wrong by one. You're wrong with one of them. Only with one though. And this is interesting because I tend to fool a lot of people because a lot of people think that I will be ENFJ. But I'm actually INFJ. I've got all of those. So you've done really well. So you've done really well. So you've done really well in those last three. But I'm actually introverted, not I'm actually introverted, not extroverted, but it can be a bit of a trick. It can be a bit of a trick because sometimes when I'm at work, for example, or with you or with when I'm in a really comfortable situation, 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 I think people perceive me as being extroverted. I think people perceive me as being extroverted. But actually the reality the reality is that I'm for sure 100% introverted. But actually, the reality is that I'm for sure 100% introverted. Actually, the reality is that I'm for sure 100% introverted. Actually, the reality is that I am for sure 100% introverted. And also, it's interesting to note that introverted, I think, has a bad rap, because I think when people say introverted, they are like, oh, it means somebody that never says anything. They are super shy, and it could mean that. But for me, it's more about you need time by yourself. And being really, really social is very draining sometimes. Being really, really, really social is very draining sometimes in some situations. So for your type, I think that you are pretty similar to me. You are pretty similar to me. I think you're an introvert. From what you've told me, and the way that we know each other. So I think you might be more or less around my personality type. 거의 around my personality type. 내 성격 비슷할 것 같다. I think you might be more or less around my personality type. I'm definitely gonna say you are introverted. Yes, I am. Do you know what I'm gonna say? INTJ. We've got opposite scores. We got opposite scores, Anna. I got 3 out of 4, and you got 1 out of 4. Oh no, disaster. All right. Okay, so what's yours? 이건 뭔데? So I am an ISFP, which I thought was a little bit surprising to me. You know, S stands for sensing, F is for feeling, and P is for perceiving. And if I had to guess, just based on what those letters mean, I would say, no, I don't think I'm a very sensing or feeling person. But yeah, according to the test results, that's what I got. I actually did the test twice because I didn't believe it the first time. I thought that can't be right. I actually did the test twice because I didn't believe it the first time. I thought that can't be right. 맞을 리가 없어. I thought that can't be right. So I waited a day and then did it again the next day, when I kind of forgot all of my answers, and I got the same result both times. That can't be right. So I think there's something to it. Oh, I love it when people have different ones to me, because then we can dissect and have a look at the different ones, because I'm like, oh, you're an S, I'm an N, but we do have the same with the feeling. So this is about basing our decisions or personal values and how your actions affect each other. So we've obviously got a little bit of crossover there. And also we're both introverted, which I knew that, I think, from what you told me before. And would you agree that it's like with introversion, it's not necessarily, would you agree that it's like with introversion, it's not necessarily, I don't see it as like being a shy, but more that if I want to recharge my batteries, I need to be alone or have some time alone. Is that how you see that introverted or introversion thing? Have some time alone. Charge. It's really hard to say. It's really hard to say. It's really hard to say. I do think there's that part of it, but I think there's that part of it. 그런 부분이 있어. 그런 면이 있어. I do think there's that part of it. There's that part. 그런 부분이 있다. I think there's that part of it. But I would say that I'm an introvert, but I do like spending time with other people. It's not like a 100% of the time thing, right? There's some nuance there. So maybe it's better to say I'm an extroverted introvert. I don't know if I could combine the two of them. I don't know if I could combine the two of them. I don't know if I could mix them. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could. I don't know 뭐인지 모르겠는데. I don't know if I could. I'm introverted in certain situation, and I am extroverted in other situation. In certain situations, I'm introverted in sometimes. In some situations, in certain situations, I am introverted in certain situations and extroverted in other situations. I think a lot of people would think it's kind of funny, and that we are both introverted, but we have a podcast that is listened to by many people, and we go on our Instagram pages and make videos and share them with people. That kind of thing traditionally people would have seen as introverted behavior. People wouldn't have seen as introverted behavior. People wouldn't have seen as introverted behavior. So I guess in that kind of way, we are extroverted. In that kind of way, in that kind of way, we are extroverted. But yeah, maybe that's more of the traditional way of understanding it. And it's more about how you get your energy, if you get energized by spending time with people or by spending time alone. And it's more about how you get energy. If you get energized by spending time with people, 사람들이랑 시간을 보내면서 에너지를 얻는지. or by spending time alone. It's more about how you get your energy. If you get energized by spending time with people or by spending time alone. How you get energy. If you get energized by spending time with people or by spending time alone. And I definitely enjoy my alone time. Yeah, I'm a big fan of alone time. I'm a big fan of alone time. And I know like I sometimes with personality, I know when I need to just have like a me day, we say, but we do think that my profile, because there's many different things that you can read about your profile, and I do think my profile is quite accurate. And there's definitely some things that I think, wow, that does describe me down to a T. But there is the thing, and I mentioned this to you before, Andrew, that it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you do the test and you get your profile, and then you think, oh, that's me. I always have to be that way. And like you said, it's not always the case. And I kind of think of it as more of a spectrum. You're kind of some days you might feel a little bit more on the extroverted end, and sometimes you might feel a little bit more carefree. Like, I think in my profile, I am very risk averse. I'm very risk averse. I think in my profile, I'm very risk averse. If I want to take a decision, I have to think about it a lot, rational, logical. But maybe there's just sometimes that I'm not like that as well. 안 그럴 때도 있다. Maybe there's just sometimes that I'm not like that as well. 그렇게 안 할 때도 있다. Maybe. 하지만 그렇게 안 할 때도 있어. Maybe there's just sometimes I'm not like that as well. So I don't know, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I do think there is obviously some truth in, everybody has different types of personalities and different tendencies. But I think also that you can have a different result at different situations at different times in your life. I've always done it when I was at work, as a way to like get to know the team and find out the other profiles in your team and how you work best together. Because if you have somebody who's, I don't know, a thinker, and then you have somebody who's the opposite, you're like, oh well, it's about understanding maybe how they are working and how you can work with them better. But I do know some people that have got different test results at different times in their life. But I think I've been pretty steady. But I think I've been pretty steady. I am steady. Well, we are talking about a little bit off air before we started recording about this topic. Anna, and I was saying how I kind of feel like I have different personalities in different situations. I was saying how I kind of feel like I have different personalities in different situations, right? My Tulip's personality, maybe your Anna with two N's English personality is a little bit different than your personal personalities. If I can say it that way, when you're spending time with maybe your friends or your family, and my work personality is different than my personal life personality. My work personality, my social personality, my personal personality, my personal personality, my personal life personality. So I think we sort of wear different hats in different situations. I think we wear different hats in different situations. 저는 다른 상황에선 다른 행동을 하는 것 같아요. I think we sort of wear different hats in different situations. Now, there are maybe some core elements that are always the same, but I do think there is some room for fluctuation. There is some room for fluctuations. 변동의 여지가 있는 것 같다. I think there is some room for fluctuations, for change from one situation to the next. Yeah, I think it's whether those are actually different personalities or whether they are all just aspects of your personality. You just use them at different points, because I'm the same. I feel like my, Anna with two N's hat I wear, and my teacher hat and my coach hat. I wear that one as well, but it doesn't mean that I'm not that person. It's just that I feel like it's an aspect of my personality that I use in that situation because it fits best. And I think when you do things like podcasts and Instagram and it's more public, you do have this kind of hat that you wear and it's kind of like performing. It's like you're having to put on, I wouldn't say a show, but I still think it's part of your personality. It's part of your personality, but it's just a different part that you use for that thing. Whatever it may be. But Andrew, I wanted to ask you, what part of your personality do you like the best? What part of your personality do you like the best? What part of your personality do you like the best? Do you like the best? What part of your personality do you like the best? I know you said you didn't agree with the profile. You're like, that's not me, I don't do that. But after reading it, what part do you like best about that profile you have with the personality that you have? Well, I got some interesting results that came up with the personality test. It gave me an overall analysis of my personality. Now, of course, this wasn't a scientific test. I didn't meet with a trained psychologist or anything. This was just like one of those things that you do on the internet in 10 minutes. One of those things that you do on the internet in 10 minutes, just answering some basic questions. So I'm not going to say that my test results are in any way scientific, but I do think that they describe me to an extent. They describe me to an extent. 어느 정도는 나를 설명하는 것 같아. I do think that they describe me to an extent. And some things that I liked about it was that I got 0% on the psychopathy result, which was reassuring. Sometimes I feel like maybe I have my emotions buried too deep inside, and sometimes maybe I'm not as caring as I could be and not as empathetic as I could be. However, I guess as I get older, I'm getting a little softer, to be honest. But to see 0% there, that was just nice. 그냥 좋았어. One thing that was just nice. One thing that I didn't like about my result is that I'm statistically prone to stress, 87% higher than the general population. So that is not great. Also more prone to mental illness and neuroticism. So that's not great. Not the best. I can think of better things. Not the best. 87% higher chance than the 87% higher chance than the general population. But it didn't say that I'm 89% more organized than most people who do this. I don't know if that is true or not, but I guess I like organization. And I like routine, and I like habits, and I like schedules. So whether I actually live by them or not, whether I actually live by them or not, whether I like it or not, whether I don't like it or not, whether I actually live by them or not, I'm not sure, but I do enjoy that, and that came out in my result as well. It also said that I'm very competitive, which I agree with. 동의하는 건데, which I agree with. It said that I'm very competitive, which I agree with. Maybe not competitive in a very direct sense. Like in life, I guess, or in my career, I'm not super competitive. But if I'm playing a game with somebody, or I'm playing sports with somebody, or I'm watching sports, I feel very competitive in that kind of situation. I'm very competitive in that kind of situation. So I totally agree with that as well. Interesting. So I wonder where the stress and the thing comes from. So I'm looking at the profile here. I'm like, why are you so prone to stress? Maybe it's paying attention to details, and maybe are you a perfectionist, for example? Maybe are you a perfectionist, for example? I'm not exactly sure. Now, the test that I did in Anna was one that I can share with our audience. I will put the link in. I'm not exactly sure. 잘 모르겠어. Now, the test that I did. I'm not exactly sure. Now, the test that I did, Anna, was one that I can share with our audience. I'll put the link in the episode description. It was an MBTI finder to find what type you are, but it also had some other questions related to different types of psychological tests built in as well. So I think maybe that was part of some questions that were outside of the MBTI, which gave me that result I am thinking.